Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome back to Hit the Gas. I'm your host, Jake Gose. I'm joined by my friend here, Joy. She does a radio show at the Aggie Center, at the, what'd you call it? Student Aggie Radio?
So pretty much in the MSc, I have my own radio show, and I'm a part of an org called K&M, which has been the radio station for Aggie Land for pretty much over 50 years. And we pretty much used to have our own like FM radio that you could listen to. But now that we transferred that kind of like age and stare of area of radio, we mostly do it online and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah.
So there's no FM station at all?
Okay, there used to be, which is really interesting. Right. I had asked about the history of K&M because it's really interesting how students have built it over time. I had been tasked with making some of the new aspects of our website, and in order to do that, I had to use a website that helped us go back in time, like basically a Wayback Machine. Gotcha. And it's been pretty much fully functioning for like 50 years until like a cutoff point, because there was like a lack of funding because arts and stuff like that not as popular as other majors and things. So
gotcha.
I'm pretty sure that we like transitioned towards like 2008, 9-ish type thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah. So for those of y'all who don't know, I met Joy at a grocery store.
Yes.
And we just got to talking, and then she told me that she was on the Student Aggie Radio. She was one of the hosts, and I thought, wow, that's super cool. Let's get her on the show. I was just getting some food and like getting work done, I think.
Yeah.
But it was super awesome. Yeah. But let me get a little bit of background on you. We did a call before this, so I already know a little bit about you. But for the audience, where did you grow up? What was your kind of childhood like?
Awesome. So I grew up in Houston, and Houston is a really bustling city, lots of diversity. But I was like a little bit ways away from Houston. It's like a big neighborhood called Greatwood. And basically I went to pretty much kindergarten through middle school, through everything, like all of those years, pretty much lived there and grew up there. And it was super big community and different people. And that's like what I find really cool, because it's also very tight knit. And it's only recently that I moved to Southwest Houston near like Montrose and stuff like that, because my mom were downsizing and stuff like that. Like my brother had graduated and stuff like that. So I am really happy to be back in the city. Not only that, growing up, I had a various amount of jobs, and I work in food service pretty much. So I had been working at a big restaurant, and a really fancy restaurant called Tiny Boxwoods and Tiny's Milk and Cookies, which exposed me to a lot of people who were part of like kind of just like the really like big metropolitan Houston area, kind of near where like all like the churches and all like the schools and like Rice University is. So that exposed me to a lot of different people and stuff like that. So pretty much growing up, I've always just tried to like expand my experiences. So I used to like work near home, and then like I started driving out to Houston and gaining all those like kind of just like connections with people like my managers and like all that stuff like that. So it's amazing, and I really do I've loved it.
Yeah, it sounds like it really really sets you up for what you're doing now.
Yes.
So, and then you said that you grew up off air a little bit in Africa, right?
Yes, I did. So my mom is an immigrant. So she immigrated here because her father had started his own radio station and also like invented a few things down in Africa. Yeah. My mom grew up, she went to Howard, and she also went to school in New York. So once she came to Texas, she settled down. She's a nurse right now, which is kind of funny because I used to want to be a nurse whenever I was growing up. Yeah, because like I was like, I want to be like my mom.
Of course,
and it was just funny because the way that it ended up was I kept on drawing, and I kept on making these things whenever I was growing up. And my mom was just like, you know what? What's so funny? Like your grandfather, I hadn't met him because he passed and everything, but he was always into that type of stuff. He would sew and all these different things. So I was like, that's super duper cool. Yeah. And then when my mom took me to Africa from like those like younger stages, and then like kind of into like my preteen years, I kind of got to see back home like what it's like. And I have a lot of family, and my mom always lets me know that growing up here in America, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
And she wants me to always like recognize that and also take advantage of every single opportunity that I'm given.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate her for pushing me and kind of just like inspiring me, because that type of inspiration is what goes on to like make those waves and echo to other people that you can do it too, even if you are like first gen, even if you come from a different area, place, whatever. So that's my favorite part about that.
That's awesome. I love that
Thank
story.
you.
I mean, I think of a lot of Americans don't really look at America as the land of opportunity anymore, just because, you know, there's so many generations of people and wealth here that they don't see like, oh, I could literally start my own business and go do my own thing. But, you know, they go to, you know, maybe a third world country where you can't do that. And I think their perspective changes quite a bit.
Exactly. And my mom, she already she created her own business teaching kids who have autism and kind of housing them and homing them. So like she's definitely like first hands-on experience with that. And she always tells me like, you can do stuff from the ground up, like you can do whatever you want. So that inspiration, and it just pushes me. And I love that.
100%. My mom also started her own business, which is kind of cool. I think
Yay.
I told you about that a little bit.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah. I've talked about it a few times on the podcast, so maybe I should have her on one day. That would be kind of corny, but funny. Like, hey, Mom, how's it going?
Yeah, of course. And like, I just like appreciate those types of things, because, you know, whenever your parents tell you stuff like that, you don't really see it. Like your parents can give you advice, but like the fact that my mom has like lived through that and it's something that she can tell me, those stories, like, people don't believe something until you do it. And so like my mom, she had, they didn't give her a business license almost like 5 different times. So she's tried and tried and tried.
Yeah.
I saw her growing up, and that was also really cool because my mom, like the neighborhood that we grow up in, like we're it's predominantly like white, like schools and everything like that.
Gotcha.
So like my mom moving into like Greatwood and stuff like that, it was like a huge culture shock for her. And so then like for me, I was like, I gotta like adapt to this space and everything and like all that stuff like that. So like growing up, I always knew that like, although different and stuff like that, like different backgrounds, I can still connect with those people. And I feel like whenever I was in high school, that also helps me realize like I can be different, I can do this, and you know what I mean, like all that stuff like that.
Were you ever a shy kid?
Okay, this is really funny. I actually really was.
Really? Wow.
Yes,
okay, did not expect that.
Super shy. Yes, I know. Like people ask me that like sometimes, but like I was very, very shy as a kid. My mom would have to like push me to talk to people, and I think at some point there was like in kindergarten especially, I was super duper like kind of like closed off and stuff like that. Especially since my mom hadn't really like taken me to different places. Like since I thought of myself as super different from like other kids and stuff like that, I was like, oh gosh, like I don't know if I kind of like fit in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So growing up, I would kind of like reserve myself, kind of be shy and kind of just like not talk too much. But I realized at a point there was there's so many embarrassing things that I did, like kind of like over like growing up. And there was like, I don't know like what switch flipped, but there was like one day where it was like, I can't be embarrassed of anything I do anymore. You know, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has like different quirks about them and stuff like that. So it's always like been something for me to like express my personality. And again, my mom says like never like always try to be yourself and never try to be anyone else. So like growing up, I just always try to like reflect that and emulate that, because it's like I have always like when you're shy and whenever you don't like expose yourself socially, you're not gonna get too much from like being alone. So I didn't like, no one wants to be alone. You want to have friends, you want to be around people and stuff like that, and it benefits you. So once I started opening myself up to other people, it's when I realized like, oh, this is actually something really interesting, that like, you know, just talking to people, just making their day and stuff like that. And, you know, like, especially like with my job now, like working at a grocery store, like Brookshire Brothers, whatever, like just talking to people, just like telling them, asking them how their day is. You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to be like talked to and everyone wants to say, like, it's just like,
and we are here now because of that.
Exactly. And like, especially in College Station, I find that everyone like people are always like, oh, there's not much to do in College Station. And I think it's like, there's not much to do because you're forced to connect with everyone around you. And everyone, like being around people is basically what people do here. Like you hang out, you socialize. Being an Aggie as well, I learned that like firsthand. Like this is my first semester here and I'm a junior. And it's crazy because I've come so far in my college career and education. But coming here, I just realized that people value people time here, and people value also just being around just happiness and just hanging out and everything.
Totally.
So yeah.
100%. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get your start? You made all these connections in Houston and you were kind of working with a little bit weller off people. I'll put
Yes,
it.
a lot.
Yeah. So did
so
that
true.
just help you kind of prepare yourself into the radio kind of industry?
So that's a really good question. Honestly, I think about high school as like kind of like my starting point for where I took kind of like my love for art and realized that it can translate into film. So I was doing a lot of traditional art, like working with like stuff like pencil and paper, and then also doing painting, oil pastels, learning different things like that. And my mom was telling me how basically she was like, you could do more. And I was like, okay, but how? And growing up, I always loved movies. Movies are like the best form of entertainment for me. I have like a really short attention span, but there's like something about movies that just like grabs my attention. And especially as a child, I loved watching things and like kind of like gaining those little like personality traits from like different characters and all that stuff like that. So once I came into high school and I realized that, I can do audio visual technology, was basically what they called like the career path that I was going into. And it was a really small department because there was only there was one woman who was running it, and then she had went to another school as like in my first semester. So then another man had handled it, and he basically had been doing radio for like 40 years and stuff like that. So he was really seasoned in his work. And his name was Thomas Tarando, and I appreciate him so much because at the end of graduation, he gave me an Excellence in Audiovisual Technology Award because I had also created a documentary about a woman who had worked at our high school who had been a part of one of the first schools for Black children in the area, basically. So it was really like kind of like historic stuff. I love documentaries. I love real stories and just like people telling their stories. And that's another thing. I was like, if I can tell my story and if I can put it into different forms like animation, film, audio, like it's super duper fun. So throughout high school, I made those little projects and stuff like that. Like my teacher would have us make little like music videos and different like things like podcasts and everything, and also doing like the news for the school. So it was really awesome, kind of like hands-on experience. And seeing my peers also succeed in that is just super awesome because I had people who I was like working with over like the time that I was in high school, which was only 3 years. I skipped a grade.
That's pretty awesome.
Much. Thank you. So like I had people who were like going to California and like going to do different things. So I feel like watching my peers do that, it gives you that motivation that like this is a real thing that is possible. This is a career that can be made because I think it's like people don't really realize how important the arts are and how important creativity is. And creativity adds to education. And I feel like if I didn't have that creative side to express, it's just harder for me to learn and stuff like that. I like being hands-on. I like imagining things. I like making those like sort of concepts and things like that. So it was super amazing during high school to like kind of get that head start. And that's what kind of pushed me into wanting to go into college and study that. So exactly.
Absolutely. That's super cool. I mean,
Thank you.
What you said about sharing your own story, and I mean that's what we're all about here at Podcast Architects. We do about, I think it's 100 hours per year of
super cool.
free shows. So we get paid, but the company, we're putting in a lot of work just to kind of help folks who would never be able to pay us be able to share, what they believe and how they feel.
And that's so important. And I just, people who are given that platform and stuff like that, like you don't ever realize how important it is until you like hear those stories and you hear those people that are like, I made this, I did this. And I always wanted to be that type of person who like pioneered their own thing. So that's another thing with like my radio show. I love music, and that's another thing. I just, I remember whenever I went to like my first few concerts when I was 14, I'm pretty sure I've been to like 35 concerts, a few festivals, like, over the time. Dude. Yeah. So like, since I was like 13, really, really young. So, I'm 19 now, and, just being in that music community as well, seeing, kind of like the creativity of artists who I look up to. It's also another thing because I have so much love for, how music connects people. And, that's a lot of how I've made my friends in K&M and everything like that. And, it just takes you different places, and
Yeah.
I'm really happy and proud about that.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you know Chelsea Reber?
No, I actually
Dude,
don't.
really? Okay,
No.
she's a host for us. And she does a radio show with WTAW. And so, I don't know, we get to work with her a lot. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, I was going to ask if all the different radio show hosts kind of like know each other or anything like
So
that.
that's the best thing about K&M. There's about like 170, 200 members, I think.
Wow.
And so we have there's like 60 shows at least. So there's everyone. It's super nice and super kind of like an enriching experience, because I remember whenever I first joined and I co-hosted on my friend Charlie's show, and their show is called The Aggie Spirit of Radio, and it's super cool because they talk about kind of like their day and kind of like the spirit of being like an Aggie, and just like living through that like student experience and like connecting with other people.
Yeah.
So whenever they showed me that, you know, like you can just talk and like you're on air and you can play whatever music you want. It helps you express yourself. It helps you like kind of like open yourself up. I loved whenever I first got on air, because I remember whenever I did my first episode, I called it Who's That on the Horizon, because the show title is Howdy Cowboy. Love cowboys, love Western things and stuff like that. And I just remember like kind of just like introducing myself and stuff like that to people and letting them know things about me, and also connecting with people on what they listen to and stuff like that is super duper fun. And I never realized how that kind of like gives me an outlet to just like talk to other people and everything else. So it's super amazing. Yeah,
it creates that avenue for you just to kind of instantly connect, instead of having to search for something like, hey, where'd you go to school, what'd you do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Were you nervous at all when you first started?
Yes, I super duper nervous. I think one thing about kind of like being in film is that you always have to like shake yourself out of your comfort zone. Like you always have to, I feel like people get caught up in like what's cool and what's in right now. And, you know, if you really only focus on what's in right now, you're going to miss what's like what you like and what you actually like want to attain and what you want to seek and everything. So kind of like going into like film and radio, I was like, you know what, like all these people, they have like different music tastes and like stuff that like different niches and stuff like that I may not have, and you kind of like feel insecure at first, but then you have to realize that like your uniqueness adds to whatever you create, and you can't just always try to like replicate what's in and what's new, because if you did that, then it would become the same thing and over again. So
Well, there's also something to be said about, I mean, you can have the same message, but it does matter the different messenger, because everyone explains stuff in a different way and has a different perspective on it. So I think that's super valuable. You know, you made a short film that you told me about.
Yes, I did.
And you've done very well with radio, and you're a very successful student. What are some challenges with all of that? You know, you told me on the phone that you were self-taught for most of these things.
Yes, exactly.
What are some challenges that you faced?
So challenges, that's a really good question. So kind of challenges that I face is kind of just always, because I've had like a very long like college career pretty much. Whenever I graduated high school, I was 16. So whenever I turned 17, I'd gone to community college, and like, you know, like you have to always like know that your ceiling for growth is super high. So like after that, when I transferred to UTSA, I was super scared of like I was studying film and media, but I was always super scared of putting myself out there, because it's super hard to put yourself out there when you don't know what you're capable of or what you can do. So I remember when I first had come to UTSA, and the person who was the head of the department, Paul Ardoin, he wanted to meet with each and every single one of his students. So I met with him in person, and he asked me like, basically, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to make things. I just don't know how or where to start. So that's a challenge. Like, you don't know where to start. You don't know who to ask. So he gave me the keys and tools that I needed. And eventually, I had talked about on the phone with you how I had created the Entertainment and Film Club with 4 other people. And this club just opened my eyes to like so many different things and aspects of film. I didn't even know like how kind of like deep and passionate other people could be, just as passionate as I am and everything, until I actually put myself forward and decided to start, you know, putting out like that energy that I have for like my passion for film and like giving it to other people. So over that first semester and like that first month that we created and kind of like made the Constitution, kind of like set up lesson plans and stuff like like that. It was super fun because I was getting to know and learn how other people have connected with film and their experience. And even though I was at sort of like an intermediate level, like I had all this knowledge, they had all this like hands-on experience. So I had my friends who were making documentaries, my friends who had been on movie sets, my friends who had also done acting. So it's super cool because you never know what everyone else around you is doing until I had asked them and we had sat down about it. So pretty much over the semester, I had kind of assisted every single member. And as treasurer, I was also like helping stuff with like fundraising and also just like looking after events and stuff like that. So it was super duper fun because these events, I would find people and I would connect with them, and like those connections would just grow our sphere and our circle. And there's so many people in entertainment and film club by the end of the semester. It was like 120 people.
Wow.
And like we were working with the film department at UTSA, and I had said how we got to do a screening at the Palladium and people got to put up their movies on a big screen.
Wow.
And that's super important. Seeing your work and seeing what you can do and how much you like kind of like nail in and grind in all those hours and stuff like that. I had created like a little bit another short film like with my friends, and it was work and everything. And like, you know, you have to balance that with school. You have to balance that with your life and all that stuff like that. But it was just so like, I have no like words to describe how inspiring it was just to see people who had also been at a beginner level learn something new. Whenever you teach someone something, and whenever you like, I took my self-taughtness and I gave it to other people who might not have the opportunity or like the time or like everything else to like to like nail in those things that they're passionate about. So so like that second semester I was there, and again we did the same screening and everything. We expanded the club and now it's still thriving. So kind of coming into A&M and everything like that, I think just teaching myself all these different things and all these like picking up on those little things that I learned from my peers and then also members, and having that encouragement and that strong connection and web of like kind of just like safety, because I know that even if I have all these different interests and everything, there's always going to be someone who probably knows something about it, probably wants to find out more or just connect. So I just think it's just pretty awesome. And that's something I'm so happy about.
It sounds like a great community that you got to experience and still are experiencing in a large way.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go, because I know you're busy, college student. You did 2 exams already today, right? Finals.
Yes.
Yeah. What does the future look like for you? You know, I feel like you're always, you know, you're working on yourself. You have a very inspiring story. You know, you graduated high school at 16. You know, are you trying to get into the movie industry? Are you trying to be a big time like Tonight Show host? Like, what's your plan?
So I had been asked this by one of my advisors, because I was like at A&M, because he was asking me, you know, because I wanted to do like a 3+2 like ABM program or like accelerated bachelor's and master's. And he was like, you know, like, what do you want to do? Because, you know, when you do communication, it's like a lot of reading and a lot of these things that, you know, people might not be interested in, you know, like reading a bunch and studying theories and stuff like that it's a lot. But I told him, I was like, you know, I tell myself all the time I could do whatever I want. So that's the best thing about being in arts and creative things and everything like that. I can do whatever I put my mind to or whatever I'm super duper passionate about. So I tell people usually I want to edit, I want to produce, I want to do audiovisual technology and design for movie sets and for concert sets as well, and also still do DJing. That's another thing I'm passionate about, and cool. Radio stuff. So kind of just like having all these different facets, and would it have happened if I didn't have that kind of like support, like say like my mom, and then in high school, my professors, my teachers and stuff like that. If I didn't have that type of push, and if those people didn't teach me those things, I wouldn't come to this point where I could be like, I can do whatever I put my mind to, like I had said. So pretty much like all that type of things, like I just want to be everything that I can be. So that's great. That's amazing. My answer to that question.
I love that. I want to be everything I can be. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with me. It was one of my favorite episodes I've ever recorded. Yay! So we'll definitely try to have you back on if your schedule works out. I know you're probably busy.
Definitely. But
awesome.
I'm so happy. Thank you, Jade.
Great. Yeah. Right. Well, make sure to subscribe to the PA YouTube channel, Podcast Architects. Hit the like button, share it with a friend, tell your mom about us. And if you're interested in a job or having your own podcast, go to podconsulting.co, fill out the form there. It'll be in contact. Thanks very much. Bye.
Produced by Podcast Architects.